All praise, glory, and honor due to the Most High, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you. In the name of Jesus, this is your brother Elisha Israel of the house of the faith, and I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's lesson. And the title is The Pagan Origins of Valentine's Day, Pagan to the Root. The origins of Valentine's Day, pagan to the root. You know, just like any other day, and for some reason I have people say Happy Valentine's Day like it was Christmas all day. You know, the thing is just like all these other days, they are pagan in nature, into the root. And I think that it should really say something that I'm talking about our people in particular, and people who call themselves Christians, right? They observe these days. They observe these days like Christmas and Easter, Valentine's Day, that they can't find written of in the Bible, and don't care to find out where they come from. And yet they don't deal with what God put in place, which is his feast days. And I want to read something in Colossians, the 2nd chapter. Colossians, the 2nd chapter, verse 16 reads, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days." Now, what are the holy days? Hold your finger here. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus 23. And I'm going to pick it up at verse, let's see. I want to pick it up at verse 1. It says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts." So now he has feasts. Peace to you, brother. And none of these are Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, right? So in Colossians, Paul is telling the congregation at Colossae about not feeling ashamed for what they believe in. I've heard this misinterpreted and say, see, he's saying you shouldn't let anybody shame you for keeping Christmas. That's not what he was talking about. Paul kept the feasts. Okay? Just to show you that, keep your finger there. And let's go to Acts, excuse me. I'll pick it up, Acts 17 and 1 and 2. It says, "And Paul, as his manner was, went unto them in 3 Sabbath days, reasoned with them out of the scriptures." What do you mean reasoned with them out of the scriptures? Because that was what he did. He reasoned with them out of the scriptures on what day? On the Sabbath. Okay. Now let's go back still in Acts. So he kept the Sabbath. That was Jesus's custom to keep the Sabbath. Right? Let's pick it up. And let's pick it up in Acts. Oh, it was a 16th chapter, but hold on for a second. Give me a second. I thought it was Acts, the 16th chapter. Maybe I'll give me 1 second. Hold on. No. Maybe it's 1 Corinthians. Hold on 1 second. First Corinthians. even though it is mentioned there. Acts 20. That was Acts 20. So Acts 20, just read it in Acts 20 what he said. In Acts 20 and 6, it says, and we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and came unto them to Troas in 5 days, where we abode 7 days. And upon the first day of the week, let's see. It says, we came together to break bread. Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. So now he's talking about the days after unleavened bread, right? They breaking bread on the first day, and people say, well, that establishes Sunday worship. That's false. But verse 16, for Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted if it were possible for him to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost, right? So he was keeping the feast days. So what is the significance of these feast days? Now let's go back to Colossians, right? We know these are the feast of the Lord. We see even at the death and resurrection of Christ, Paul is still observing them. So what's the purpose? What's the importance of them? Colossians, the 2nd chapter, in verse 16. So he tells those who are coming into the faith, he says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. His feast days point out the plan of salvation for man. The Passover lamb, he took a lamb on the 10th day, kept it until the 14th day, right? The trial period was the 10th day to the 14th day. It was slain on the 14th day, and they had to come up under the blood of the lamb to be saved. Jesus came and died on the Passover. You must come up under his blood to be saved from the wrath of God. Right after that, they took unleavened bread. They cast out leaven, which represents sin, malice, wickedness, false doctrine, anything that you need to get rid of that will cause you to sin, right? They ate unleavened bread, which represent God's law. So once you come under his blood, now you got, and they left Egypt that day. What you have to do is walk in newness of life according to the law, right? That's what that bread represented. That's the word. He said, the words that I speak, they got spirit in their life, right? So what does Pentecost represent? You used to have first fruits that were waved prior to Pentecost, which represents Jesus Christ, the first fruits, they are Christ at his coming. Peace to you. Jesus Christ, the first fruits, they are Christ at his coming. So now Pentecost represents the resurrection. Now you got the feast of the memorial blowing of the trumpets, where everything, the second coming of the Messiah and the gathering of his people is at the sound of a trumpet. So that king is going to come, the King Jesus, when he returns, and he's going to gather his people at the sound of a trumpet. Okay? Then you got the Day of Atonement. Reconciliation for sin is made, again, through Jesus. He is our atonement. And tabernacles. It commemorates when Israel dwelt in tabernacles in the wilderness, but it also points to, the 8th day points to the shedding of this tabernacle and taking upon a body like God. See, these feast days lay out the plan of salvation for man. So that's their significance. Okay, so he says, which in verse 17, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. Okay, now if you're dealing with God, there's something you need to understand. Let's go to the gospel according to John. If you're dealing with him, there's something you need to understand. Give me 1 second. Let's go to John, the gospel according to God. John, excuse me. John, the 4th chapter. I'm going to pick it up at verse. Let's pick it up at verse 24. John, the 4th chapter, verse 24. It says, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. What is the truth? He tells you in another place in John, the 17th chapter, sanctify, and this is verse 17 and 17 of John, sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is true. Now, he also tells you something else that's truth, and I've read this before, but it tells us good to read it again. Psalms 119, you want to pick it up in verse 151. It says, thou art near, O Lord, and all thy commandments are true. So his commandments are the truth. His word is the truth. And let's go and see something that he commanded. Let's go to Exodus, the 20th chapter. Exodus, the 20th chapter. Exodus 20 and verse 1. It says, and God spake all these words, saying, now these are the 10 commandments. He said, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. One thing about the God of Israel, he manifested himself unto his people. He showed who he is. There's no doubt about it. There should no question. I mean, he brought Egypt down to his knees through the plagues. He split the Red Sea and drowned them in the Red Sea, then brought them out into the wilderness. He said, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, right? That Egypt represents bondage. Then that he brought them out and brought them out of slavery, right? And he said something, thou shalt have no other gods before me. His word is true. His commandment is the truth. He is God. That's the truth. You don't need any other. And if you're going to worship him, you have to do it in truth. You have to do it according to what he said to do. Why am I reading it? Because when you're talking about Valentine's Day, brothers and sisters, that's from, it was originally in honor of a couple pagan gods. Now, this is from the pagan origins of Christian holidays. I'm going to read very briefly just this section on this chapter, chapter 3. It says, Valentine's Day, a remnant of dark love. It says, it is likely, on page 21, it is likely that Valentine's Day, a day that is associated with love and romance, was birthed out of the ancient Roman feast Lupercalia. That festival was from February 13th through February 15th. Lupercalia was celebrated annually in honor of Lupercus, Pan, and Juno. For Brueta, Juno, Fructia. The day, February 15th, was called Dies Frubiatus, the day of expiation and purification. And the month Februarius was known as the month of purification. This festival of Lupercalia was officiated by the Luperci. Luperci was a minor college divided into 2 colleges. During this festival, the priests of Luperci would come together in the cave of Lupercal on Palatine Hill. Now, this is Rome, okay? Where, according to legend, the founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus, were nursed as infants by a lupa or she-wolf. If you ever see pictures, you'll see pictures of this wolf with the teats out and then the 2 boys sucking from the teats. You see that in statues. On Palatine Hill, every February 15th, the Luperci sacrificed animals known for their strong sexual instincts, such as goats and dogs. Lupercal is a goat. Such as goats, the Lupercal and dogs, faunus, to the god of fertility. That is the origin of Valentine's Day. Let's keep reading and see what they did. 2 sons of noble distinction were then chosen and anointed with a bloody sacrificial knife upon their foreheads. Milk-soaked wool was then wiped on the young boys, at which time they began to laugh. Subsequently, the goats were cut into thongs. Now, those are strips when it says thongs, called frubia. And the boys ran throughout the city scantily covered with goat hides, striking women with the thongs. So now imagine these young boys walking around with strips of animal skin. Now they're scantily clothed, and they run around laughing, and they smacking women with it. And these were soaked milk, sometimes blood. Then it says, Ovid offers 4 reasons for the boys' nakedness. So now they run around half naked doing this. This is the origin of Valentine's Day. It said the Greek god Pan himself runs naked. The primitive Arcadians who worship Pan did not wear clothes, The Roman god Faunus dislikes clothes because of sexual contentions caused when Hercules and Omphale exchanged clothes at a feast for Faunus. Romulus and Remus and their followers were exercising in the nude when they had to rush off, still undressed, in pursuit of cattle rustlers. Okay, so now that was from August fasty Roman holidays, but it says it is believed that such a strike would aid in conception and childbirth. See, this is about fertility. It's not a coincidence that everybody. I went to the store today. What would everybody do? Everybody was buying flowers. They're buying wine. Why didn't go home and deal with somebody that's not their wife or husband? A lot of them. It was believed that such a strike would aid in conception and childbirth. Thus, women of rank received these lashes willingly. Now, if you remember English class back in the day, listen to this. An allusion to this custom is found in Shakespeare's The Tragedy of Julius Caesar. And I'm not going to read it here, but it's when, I actually will read it. Caesar says Calpurnia. Calpurnia says, "Here, my lord." Caesar tells her, he says, "Stand you directly in Antonius's way when he doth run his course." Antonius comes in and says, "Caesar, my lord." Caesar says to him, "Forget not in your speed, Antonius, to touch Calpurnia, for our elders say, the barren touched in this holy chase shake off their sterile curse," because he wanted her to have a child. This is page 23. It should be noted that it was during this feast in 44 BC that Julius Caesar was offered the crown 3 times by Mark Antony, who was the high priest of the Luperci. Okay. Later, the Romans began a licentious love lottery in which men drew the names of young women from an urn. The two paired together and became sexual partners for a period of time. The lovers' lottery was also very popular during medieval England. Like many secular festivals, Lupercalia was given a Christian cloak. In 496 AD, Pope Gelasius I replaced the licentious pagan Lupercalia with a festival in honor of the martyr Valentine. Okay, so this is how you get Valentine's Day. So now, what the MO of the Roman Catholic Church is to bring all this paganism. I'm gonna hold this page. We'll come back to that. But they will bring all the pagans in. Why? Keep the customs, but put a Christian cloak on it. Let's go to Revelation. We're gonna pick it up in Revelation, the 13th chapter. I'm gonna read some here, point something out in the book of Revelation that John writes in chapter 17. Okay. So it says here, and there came, verse 1, Romans 17:1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Now this whore represents the Roman Catholic Church, brothers and sisters. Now listen to what it says. It says, whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. What kind of fornication? Spiritual fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. See, so this wine represents the false doctrine that this church is putting forth throughout all the inhabitants of the earth. Right? So you talk about Valentine, that's from Catholicism. You talking about Christmas, that's from Catholicism. The worship, the observance of Easter, that's Catholicism. Sunday worship, that's Catholicism. Even when you talk about Halloween, and how it was co-opted, you talking about Catholicism. Okay? And many other days of lesser popularity, but you can trace these days back to what was going on with Rome, the co-opting and the twisting of them and the putting on the Christian veneer. You could trace that to Rome. But the origins of many of these customs you could trace all the way back to Babylon, and Rome is, spiritually speaking, the new Babylon. But now, that's why I said in verse 5, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Now let's go to verse 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. That's key. Why? Because I just read to you what was going on Palatine Hill. 7 hills are 7 mountains. Rome was built on 7 hills. But back to pagan origins, Christian holidays. This is page 23. So it says again in 496 AD, Pope Gelasius I replaced the licentious pagan Lupercalia with a festival in honor of the martyr Valentine. However, there is debate concerning exactly which Saint Valentine Gelasius was referring to. There was a Valentine in a Roman province in Africa and Bishop Valentine of Interama, modern day Turin, Italy. However, the most popular candidate was a bishop in Rome during the reign of Claudius. During his reign, Claudius the Cruel engaged Rome in many bloody military campaigns. He viewed marriage as a hindrance to military victory and banned their religious sacrament. According to legend, Bishop Valentine of Rome continued to perform marriages and as a consequence was beheaded by Claudius. In some versions of the legend, during his imprisonment, Valentine converted members of his jailer's family to Christianity, and prior to his execution, sent a farewell letter to the jailer's daughter that was signed from your Valentine. Gelasius made Valentine the patron saint of love and chose the date of his death, February 14th. Chose the date of his death, February 14th, as the day to commemorate his life. Over time, the Lupercalia was replaced with St. Valentine's Day. Eventually, it became customary for lovers to exchange gifts and messages on this day. However, the sexual wanton behavior that occurred during the ancient Lupercalia festival still persists within the current celebration of Valentine's Day. So this page is Israel teaches all about being educated, brothers and sisters, about how to get salvation, but also in regard to where these days come from, and where do these customs come from, and should we be dealing with them or not? So with that, brothers and sisters, again, we're at the House of the Faith, meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana, at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's every Sabbath, which is Saturday, at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana. We also live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. If you've been edified through our ministry, you can leave a donation. 100% of the proceeds go to the work of the ministry. We do not get paid. I want to thank you, all those who haven't donated. We truly appreciate it. We are truly thankful. And what else do I want to say? Shout out to my brother Albert, my brother Leo, and his lovely family, as well as Albert and his wife. Shout out to brother Eula and his wife, brother Daniel, the names on top of my head, and his family. Just peace to you all, and peace to everybody that's listening. Much love from this way, and keep the faith.